Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. And in this Linux tutorial, what we are going to talk about is while loop. Okay, so what is a while loop? Well, basically, while, and you can also use an until loop, are used for iteration the same way we have seen in the last tutorial that the for loop is used for iteration. Okay, however, and let me just kind of write these down. So while loop is written like this, and the until loop is written like this. However, I will not teach you how to use them. And the reason why is because, again, I do know other programming languages besides shell scripting, and I do believe that you really shouldn't use while and until loops. Basically, what I mean by that is if you find yourself using while and until loops in your shell scripts, you should probably be using another programming language. And again, this sounds like a generalization. Listen, maybe it is. Maybe in your particular case, you should be using a while or an until loop. However, I highly doubt that is the case, okay? Because usually most of the time what happens is that people kind of rationalize that they have a special case and that their case is special and they should use the while or the until loop. However, it is most likely not, okay? And if you are, especially because what you're doing in while and until loops is you are manipulating variables arithmetically. Okay, so you are manipulating variables and you are using some arithmetical calculations. And if you remember the tutorial from the beginning of this section, I said that if you're going to use arithmetic stuff and string stuff, you shouldn't be using bash scripts. Okay, they're not really the most optimal choice for that. I would recommend a Python script. For example, a Python script would work wonders for that. Okay, so again, even though the shell scripting supports it, I don't really think that it's a good idea to use it, and that's why I will actually kind of leave this out. Okay, I will tell you that you will have some links in the video description below if you want to look at them, if you really want to understand how to use while and until loops. And you can always use Google to search for additional information. However, I will repeat, if you need to use a while or an until loop, switch to another programming language. And this is not just my opinion, but this is also the opinion of one of the authors of the books which I have read on the topic of Linux. But I do tend to agree with him because, again, I myself am a software engineer and I do kind of agree with that statement. Okay, again, even though I don't have like the most extensive experience doing shell scripting, but I do have experience using other programming languages, and I really believe that, based on what I read about shell scripting and based on my limited experience with it and based on my cumulative experience as a software engineer and a computer scientist, I do believe that there are some tools more suited for arithmetic and string manipulation than bash scripts are. Okay, so kind of like my philosophy is like, if I don't want people to use something, or if I recommend against using something, I will point you to the resources. If you really need to, you can learn it. However, I won't be the one who's going to like pour that knowledge into your hand, okay, so to speak. Okay, so hope you learned something useful, and probably you feel like you haven't, but you did, because you basically learned, okay, if I need a while or an until loop, it's probably a time for me to consider learning another programming language. Okay, so thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next tutorial.